Everybody, it's a special edition here of Esports Weekly. I'm back. I know you had to deal with F. last Esports Weekly. I am terribly sorry about that, but we're now able to remedy that, and we're right back at it. And this episode of Esports Weekly is going to be exclusively about this upcoming console LAN. Got a really good LAN coming up for you this weekend, so we figured we'd dive right into it. We'll also touch on the PS4 qualifiers that just happened at the end of last week. We've got our top plays and top fails. All of those are from this console split. Got a meta discussion where F. isn't here, so you don't have to worry about him saying just objectively wrong things about how he thinks that he's better than Finch, because let's be real, that's not a high bar to hurdle, but somehow Tom still stumbled. Let's get right into it, though. I've got Tolly and Finch with me on the desk, couple different faces here for this console LAN. What's up, gentlemen? How you doing today?
Feels good, man, honestly, to go from the PC side to the console now, went from the casual set to the desk, moving on up.
Yeah, this is objectively an upgrade for our desk now. I mean, we got Ryan back on the helm, Finch here instead of Tom, instead of Hindu. I mean, this is probably the best desk we'll have, so enjoy it while it's here.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably a good call. If you want to take a picture now, kind of commemorate this moment. In fact, you guys want to pose for a picture real quick?
Yeah, they're taking a whole bunch of pictures really quickly all the time.
Okay, you gotta pose though, Finch. You're not. Nice. Okay. Make sure you get that screenshot. Let's talk about the PS4 qualifiers that just happened towards the end of last week. These teams that qualified, I think the thing that stood out to me overall, as we take a look at the North American standings, is that a lot of Xbox players came over. I mean, Speedy Slugs had DeWorst. The man's a world champion. They don't qualify. Instead, it's Conquest Esports. It's family-friendly. This squad, the Xbox players did not come over and dominate. PS4 certainly held its own.
No, I'm right there with you, and it makes me think that the PS4 level of competition might be a little higher than we might have initially given them credit for, because that exact point, that it wasn't just free for some of those former Xbox players when they came over. It looked great. There were, of course, some miscues. This is a very new league, but I saw some excellent communication from these teammates from these teams going towards objectives over just taking random fights. I thought they looked very clean.
Whether it's PC, whether it's Xbox or PlayStation 4, it's a different console, different platform, and I think at the end of the day, if you're not really used to the controller in front of you, you will struggle against a native veteran user.
And it's certainly showing off their own individual skills. This is Europe. Takedown, Charizard in my backyard, Africa Freaks, and Insomnia will be your 4 teams in the PS4 League come this fall. We can all call a spade. For my money, I think that the North American side did look a little bit stronger right now, but certainly there were some individual players on Europe's side that showed some promise there in the PS4 qualifiers.
Yeah, I would say that both of the teams in Europe still looked great from both groups, really. Yeah. But I would agree with you that Takedown, Charizard in my backyard kind of looked like they might be up there near the top, and Xbox Rejects as well ended up looking very good. But I wouldn't count those European teams out. I mean, Rival has climbed back up over on the Xbox side, I think, so I expect for Europe on PS4 as well to continue improving.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And speaking of Rival, I mean, they are the defending champions coming from that spring split LAN as we move over to what we've got going for the Xbox LAN coming up. It's weird that we have to specify Xbox now and not just continue to say console. Look, during this summer split, Rival continued to look dominant. No surprise whatsoever. They finished 6-0, but Revenge, kind of a surprise at 4-2 in Europe. As for North America, 4-2 for each Astro Authority and Flashpoint. Armada Esports miss out by just a hair for coming to LAN. But look, Rival and Revenge, let's start in Europe with Revenge, I suppose, because Rival should be pretty easy to talk about. 4-2, this Revenge squad did not come to LAN during the spring split, but they did show up and look like the second best team in Europe without a doubt.
I think so. A lot of it has to do with Gnome, their solo laner of choice, just to be able to really lead the charge. I think that him specifically, having so much experience in the previous LANs as a solo laner, definitely helps transition whatever the newer players is going to get used to once they show up to Atlanta.
And he's going to have his work cut out for him here, totally, because it's kind of a stacked solo lane, really, if you consider Predators, Wolves, Delny, and then it's also Gnome. So he's going to have to make sure that he's really stepping up to sort of meet the level of competition that he can expect. And remember, I mean, this Revenge squad, throughout the summer split, I know they were 4-2, but their only losses were to Rival. I mean, you don't feel bad about that, right? If that's the only people that beat you in a set. So, I mean, I know they're the second place EU team and all the rest of these teams look strong, but I don't think we can overstate the expectation for this squad either. And Gnome in particular, I think, is going to be a part of that. He's very much like like in basketball, this is like an on-the-court leader. Gnome kind of feels that way in game. He's so strong for them out of the solo lane.
Well, that's kind of how you draw it up, right? I mean, you start on a really good team that's kind of winning everything in your region, and then those players start to spread out a little bit and start to kind of give that knowledge out to other players on the roster. Mango as well has been around for a long time in the European console scene. He's now in the jungle for Revenge. Do you really feel like, I mean, historically, it's been not only Europe is behind North America at these lands, but the second place European team has struggled heavily at these lands. Do you think that we could see a change here with Revenge?
I definitely think there's a chance for it because they're the only team here that plays against Rival recently, consistently, right? So they get to go up against potentially the best competition on Xbox, on console right now, on a regular basis. And they've basically been stomping everybody else. So this Revenge team, I know it's hard to pick them against such a stacked squad, but I think we can expect big things.
Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No, not at all. Rival are just on the up and up ever since their land. You know, going down to Astral in the first round to be able to come back and win it all 3-2 in the finals just goes to show their real strengths on land. And then off of that momentum, going undefeated online, which is a totally different playing ground, showing that they're still capable of that post-land fever.
Yeah, certainly impressive from Rival and from Revenge. And I think that's really good. A really good point, though, Finch, that this team is practicing against Rival all the time. And that's kind of what Rival had said many years ago, that they weren't getting the greatest practice in this region. Now that Rival is the de facto team to beat, how can that really affect what Revenge will bring to the table here, Toli, against North American teams?
I think that Revenge have a slight edge in terms of the if they ever face out Rival. But if they face North America, that's going to be a different ballgame entirely. They are more aggressive for the most part. They want to fight over the little things, over like your red buff and speed buff, as opposed to the gold fury. So we might see like an early first blood before the 3-minute mark even. And if they're not ready for it, then I think at the end of the day, despite all the practice that they got against Rival, they're not going to be able to really make it.
This is a team that has some names that you should be getting familiar with. Ling Xiaohu in the mid lane has had some really, really solid performances. Poseidon certainly seems the go-to pick there for Revenge's mid laner, but overall, I've been impressed with his level of play, but I do think it's the two that we've highlighted before this, in Mango and certainly in Gnome.
Yes.
Those are the guys that are going to have to step up, but in this current meta, you can't really afford to have your mid laner not make big plays as well.
Yeah, what they really need from Ling Xiao, I feel like more than anything, is just to make sure he's following up from this squad, and he does. I mean, you're seeing some examples right here, right now in these highlights, right? So he can follow up for you, but I don't know if Ling Xiao's going to be the guy that can take over the game if other areas are struggling. Like you said, you might be looking a little bit more towards Gnome and Mango for that. So as long as Ling Xiao is making sure that he's there when they need him, like to answer that big call, then I think they should be fine.
And that's Revenge for you. That's the one European team, but the other one that we've been talking quite a bit about, Team Rival, the defending champions, man, they look like they haven't missed a beat. And that's, I think, was a worry for me, was after finally getting there, you know, they finally attain the Holy Grail, they win a LAN for the first time ever. Would they kind of fall off? Would they lose that hunger to really be that dominant team? And it hasn't looked like it quite yet. But again, they have historically dominated the region no matter their level of preparation. And I wonder if they'll bring that same level of energy and preparation that they brought during the Spring LAN, where they still had a lot to prove.
I think that there's a small concern here, right? Because they won the Spring LAN, but it wasn't like dominant, right? It wasn't 100% convincing. It was an excellent performance. They looked great, and they continue to look great in spring, but they don't look like they've run away with the box and they're untouchable or anything like that. So I want them to hold on to that hunger that you just talked about. I want them to make sure that they don't get too far ahead of themselves. They're my favorite. We'll talk about our picks later, obviously, but I would just want to make sure they don't think that they're untouchable at this point. Everyone's still very close.
They've proven themselves being aggressive. They've proven themselves on the defensive side. So I think that it's really hard to challenge them to be able to go down in the first round to Astral, go all the way from the lower bracket during that Spring Masters was no easy task whatsoever. They've proven that they can do that, and I think that transitioning into the Summer Masters, I think they are going to be probably heading to the finals almost uncontested, so they need to make sure that they don't get too far ahead of themselves, keep playing with the same momentum and drive and energy that you were talking about, Aggro, during that LAN and even online the way they perform.
And if they do get that momentum and have that energy, a lot of it will be coming from this guy on your screen right now, Vaporish Coast. The young kid who just comes and shows up and just
kid, by the
dominates.
Way.
I know. The man is what, 16 or something like that? Very, very young lad, but certainly makes plays and is loud when he does so. And that is such a huge boon. I mean, Toli, you can speak from experience of playing on LAN. Having that energy guy on your team who isn't just going to be loud, but also has the opportunity to make game-changing plays at any given time. It makes it so much easier to perform.
It's hard to really rely on someone this young, but he's definitely proven that he can do it time in and time out. And I think that this is his land to really show off, because he was always doing a wonderful performance, but I never really seen like too many spectacular individual plays. He's always been given an advantage with Dinosaur by his lane, catering to his side, with a bunch of ganks also from Rapio that was able to help his duo lane really succeed and thrive. And I think that there's a time and a place where Viporskos does make those plays, but I think that it's now his land to really start shining.
This is the first time where even coming into the spring land, people are like, oh, what is Coast going to do at this land because of his performance during the fall super regionals last season. But I think you're right, Tully. This is the first time where everyone is really looking specifically at not only Vaporish, but Dinosaur as well, this duo lane of Team Rival that was so dominant during the spring land. They got a lot of leads just based off this duo lane, and you can expect that they're going to be going for something similar here in this one.
They're very aggressive as a duo lane between these two, and they love to play forward. They love to take boxing matches as soon as possible in the lane and just try and be better than you mechanically, and oftentimes they are. They're very good here in this lane, and I think Vaporish has kind of risen a little bit to that expectation. He's not only playing very well for them in team fights, doing what you need your hunter to do, but he'll box you. He'll take the 1v1s. He'll catch you out in the jungle on these Uller picks that he likes to play, whatever it is that he's on. He always looks comfortable, and then, as you mentioned, Dinosaur right there with him, not just helping out, getting some early duo pressure, but he rotates early and often, and he helps out the rest of the map too.
A lot of early game Guardians for Dinosaur for sure. I mean, the RDOs, the Terras, the things that can control the lane very early on. Aggressive is definitely the name of the game for Rival in the duo lane. But in the mid lane, it seems to be a little bit of a switch up there. I mean, sometimes aggressive Fly plays, but a lot of different gods is really the takeaway for me. I mean, he'll play Raijin, he'll play Zeus, he'll play Giannis. He's got a lot of different things, but the moral is he almost plays well on all of them.
It's mostly burst, whatever he picks at the end of the day, because of how much frontline presence he has, not just with Dinosaur, but also with Rapio and Predators later down the road. Being able to transition from that gives Fly so much freedom, and also Vaporish Coast once he transitions into that mid to late game, which makes Rival such a well-rounded team composition in general, no matter what they pick.
And he's always playing burst, but Finch's positioning usually ends up being so good. I mean, he played a Zeus game against one of the best teams in the world in North America during the spring land. Didn't die in a whole set, basically, playing Zeus of all characters. I mean, that is a huge deal to be that good at positioning in the mid lane.
Yeah, he may have dropped the 50-meter or whatever, but he's no less impressive here for me. I mean, Fly, he's almost exactly what you want from your mid laner, and you highlight, I think, why, because he can play so many things, but his positioning even more so is what's important for them. He's just like the thing we say all the time, right? Consistency is what we want from our players, and 50-meter Fly, he feels like that to me.
Yes.
He feels like the one that always is going to perform the way that you need him to for you. He's not going to be the reason that you're losing a game. He's right there to follow up. The same way we may have had some questions about some of these other mid laners, you don't have to worry about that with Fly. My man's going to be right there.
I think that someone is going to have to impress me to say that Fly isn't the best mid laner at this LAN. And that includes Baronic, who has been kind of the guy on console mid lane for a long time. I think that Fly has taken that record from him now, and he's the one to beat in the mid lane. But if you're beating up on Fly, that means you got to go through Rapio. And speaking of consistency, I think it's big when it comes to Rapio. Now, he did get the monkey off his back, played very, very well at that last during Spring LAN, played a multitude of different gods pretty well, but still had some performances where you scratched your head a little bit. Are you guys worried at all about what Rapio's bringing, or are you past the LAN nerves that he can sometimes have?
I'm not worried for Rapio whatsoever. During his post-game interview, we could just tell how much this victory meant to not only him, but his team, his whole region, Europe as a whole, struggled in the console world. And the last time they were even at a LAN that found a victory was at Valencia when they beat out Soar Gaming during that semifinal. So it's been a long time since they even, and that was their first one ever in Europe. So this is their second one, and they finally brought it home.
Rival's jungler, long-time jungler for that matter, certainly has been around through thick and thin for this squad. And I think that's a good way to put it, Tully. Just pure relief whenever he finally won that LAN. And it's hard to feel anything but happiness for the guy who stuck it around for that long and put that much effort into it and finally found that victory. But now we're off to a different land, and it is, for me, still the linchpin of this team. I mean, when Rapio is playing poorly, as good as the rest of the team is, they seem to lose a little bit of that that kind of aggressiveness whenever their jungler isn't being aggressive as well.
Yeah, he's in an interesting position, right? Because his dual lane is so often pushed up that you can't always run over there and gank that, and Predators is so dominant in his lane too, and that he doesn't always have as many options maybe as some other junglers do. It's hard to say that your lane's always being pushed up might be a bad thing, but Rapio is the kind of guy that seems to always capitalize on it anyway, right? If Esports, Coast, and Dinosaur overstep, well, he's right there to keep it even, right? If Fly needs some setup as soon as he's level 5, well, Rapio's right there as well to get them going. He's always exactly where he needs to be on the map. Does he sometimes feel himself a little bit maybe and go too far? Yes, but I think I'd rather have someone who will go too far than won't go far enough.
And you mentioned it right there. I mean, he often has to come into that solo lane and dive towers alongside Predators, who has been really, really good in this solo lane. Loves these sort of weird picks that not a lot of other people are playing. He was playing tier last year when really no one else was. Can play just about anything under the sun. And we're going to talk a lot about what you can expect out of the solo lane, and maybe some mages coming in this LAN during the meta discussion, but I feel like Predators will be A-okay on whatever they put him on.
He's very aggressive, which fits the style of his whole team. It gives a lot of pressure to Rapio to freely rotate to that lane when Predators is making the aggressive plays, invading the blue buffs on top of that. Now, mages have risen in the meta, but this is not really his style. He's more of a warrior / aggressive guardian kind of player, making a lot of highlight plays, even invading enemies' speed buff on time occasions.
He's the guy that at 7 minutes is at your speed buff, and you're like, why are you here? I don't understand. It's because he's probably just dominating his lane. He feels like he does it so often. For a while, Predators, I feel like, was the rock of this team, and it was like, even when the rest of the team wasn't doing well, you could count on Predators. Now we're to the point, and that's kind of what I think we've been essentially saying all along, is that everyone on this team can pop off at any point. That's really freed up Predators, I feel like, just do whatever he wants in solo. There's not going to be as much attention for him over there. They're not going to just sit in solo lane, and he's really kind of shined with the spotlight off of him, if that makes sense in any way.
No, it definitely has, and Hercules has been kind of the pick that I'm worried about if I'm going up against Predators. But the Cucullins, the Cabrakan that you saw during that, the aggressive gods are ones to watch out for. And we'll talk a little bit more later about whether or not it's worth giving up that identity to go for some of the more flavor of the month selections and things like Chang'e. But that's for later. For right now, it's time to move on to North America, and we'll start with Flashpoint there. This team has a ton of talent. I mean, this team is really stacked from top to bottom, including a couple names from kind of blast from the past, and especially in that dual lane in Michael Checo and Matt Koiz. These two have plenty of experience. Certainly Koiz does among all Xbox players, one of the most successful in the history of Xbox SMITE. What do this duo lane need to do? Well, let's start with Michael Checo. What does he need to do if he was going to beat the likes of Vaporish Coast and Cyprexa?
Well, it's not going to be easy for them going up against these types of dual lanes. Like we said, the rival dual lane is so aggressive. This Ashland Authority dual lane, they're a little bit new as a duo, but still very competent. They're going to have to fall back on their experience for me here, Ryan, if they want to make sure they can win it. Got to try and draft some pressure, some picks where they can make sure they're not going to be falling too far behind early and can match them with their late game presence. And as long as they do that, as long as they check those boxes, then Michael Checo is one of the better late game hunters you can ask for. He's definitely going to be there for you hitting his shots, so you just got to make sure you can get him there.
Michael Checo is definitely one of these creative players that likes to throw many curveballs, but that was when his time was with Dr. L, not so much now with Matt Koiz under his side as a supporter Jumpa in the jungle side of things. So I'm thinking that he'll probably play more standard, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Neefs or some Ao Kuangs that he used to run, some Hells, and that could be the little tipping point that Flashpoint needs to find a victory at this LAN.
Sometimes when your back's against the wall, putting your hand on some Checo cheese is like the way to go. You know, the Hell ADC, the Ao Kuang ADC, that's what this guy used to be known for. You mentioned the late game ADCs, though. Finch is what he's been playing a lot of recently. I mean, every highlight that we just saw of him was on a late game hunter, whether it be Artemis or Gibalanque. These guys are definitely looking for that. And Matt Koiz, as you mentioned, is going to need to make sure that Checo and everyone else stays safe in lane. Koiz is really known more than anything else for his communication and that experience. and what he can bring in that side of things. But that doesn't mean he's a slouch mechanically.
Definitely not. He has so much LAN experience. I think missing out on only the last one, and ever since his beginning, he can definitely bring a lot of LAN experience for his other players that might not have that same experience. And I think that you were talking about Vaporsh Coast and the energy that he brings, that energy and that voice. Well, Matt Koiz is definitely that voice in that background as well. Every time he makes a play or his teammates, you could just hear him in the background.
Yeah, Matt Koiz definitely is sort of a stabilizing force, I feel like, for this roster. And we were just talking about this dual lane, Michael Checo. Like, you'll be at the end of the game, like, when did Michael Checo do all that damage? Like, when did that happen? It's because it's been Matt Koiz, like, setting him up all game. You don't even realize where it's happening, and that's the kind of presence he can have for this team. So I definitely have high hopes for this dual lane. I mean, this Flashpoint roster, been rocking this roster all summer. Consistency's been the name for them this whole summer split. So coming in, I expect them to be looking great.
And that they're going to have a tough task, but certainly up to it. But if they're going to beat the best teams in the world, the Rivals and the Astral Authorities, I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Panda Mid. This guy has been kind of fluctuating in and out of the league for quite some time in that mid lane. This is without a doubt his best opportunity to make plays here at LAN, and he's got to take advantage of that.
This is his true ultimate test, to be able to take what he learned online and show the whole world what he's capable of on LAN when the ping is a little bit less, when the frames are way better. And he definitely looked comfortable and confident online, but this is a whole different playing ground.
Yeah, the ping may be less totally, but the pressure is certainly not, and that's what Pandaman's got to make sure that he's rising up to. If there's a small question mark for me anywhere on this Flashpoint roster, I mean a small one, because these are all incredibly good rosters, then it's going to be here in this mid lane for them. I really need Panda Mid to make sure that he's consistently following up, because if you have someone like Jumpa on your team, the opportunities are going to be there, right? The setup is going to be there. Matt Koiz, the setup will be there. He has to make sure he's positioning correctly, he's following up every time, and consistently able to play some of these top mages that everyone else can be playing too.
That's a good point. I mean, this is a team full of world champions. I mean, Matt Koiz has been very, very close to that title. Jumpa, Delny, guys on that old roster for Mythic Gaming. Yeah. This is a lot of LAN experience. Michael Checo's been to a couple. Panda Mid is the question mark here, and I don't think that's unfair to say. And he does have a lot of experience around him, and that can be a big deal, kind of giving a newer player, kind of showing them the ropes, if you will certainly be the call for Flashpoint's mid laner, and a lot of that will be done by Jumpa, as we mentioned. Yeah. His jungle play, the reigning MVP from last year's World Championship.
And well earned.
Jumpa's still making it happen.
Always aggressive, always looking for those plays. Doesn't matter what side lane he ganks, which could easily allow Panda Mid to just kind of chill and farm back and sit very quietly, transition to that mid game because of the plays that Jumpa is looking for in these side lanes.
Jumpa is just fun to watch, isn't he? He feels like that jungler where we talked about, who was it, Predators, who's in the enemy jungle all the time? Yeah. Well, Jumpa's the same kind of way. He seems more concerned with your red buff than his own, or invading more than anything else. And occasionally, he'll step a toe out of line and get punished for it, but more times than not, he's really facilitating. He's pulling them back for the brink because he'll take those risks. He'll go for it. He's so insanely confident in his own ability, and I think I want that in my jungler maybe more than anything else. Maybe solo, it works there too, but Jumpa, he's such a force to this team in the jungle. I love watching him.
He's really good about min-maxing every play that he looks for, calculating before the tower dive even occurs, couple seconds behind, and I think that he is going to be the key to success or failure for Flashpoint this LAN.
Certainly fair to say. I mean, you got to have your MVPs make MVP performances if you're going to win LANs, and Jumpa certainly fits that bill. Delny, on the other hand, he has been kind of a big facilitator for this team. Usually not the hyper-aggressive guy, at least historically. He was a lot of, into the Sobek, the Guardians, while a lot of NA solo laners were at that time. Certainly not just him. How is he going to match up against the very aggressive solo laners like Gnome and like Predators out of Europe?
No, it's a very difficult. I've said this already, that I think the solo lane might be the most competitive pool here. I mean, there's so many very strong solo laners, so there really is a lot of pressure to stack up, not just against Gnome and Predators, but Wolves as well. There's a lot of talent here. Yeah. And I think you're exactly right when you say that it feels like he's the one that's sort of facilitating. You don't always see Delny's name at the top of the kill feed or anything like that, but he's definitely in the mix, being disruptive, getting everything going for the rest of the squad. And you never feel like Delny's the problem with this team either. So as long as Delny does what he does, keeps things moving, then I don't think there should be a problem for them from the solo world.
That's a great point that you mentioned, Finch. It's just he's going to do his job and his responsibility, allow Jumpa just answer some questions of, like, is there a gank opportunity? Whenever Delny plays any Guardian, whether it's Sobek or the Kuzumbo, doesn't matter what turtle it is, he's going to be able to attract people to his own tower line, and that gives Jumpa some momentum in a small window to look for a gank.
And there is something to be said that Delny and Jumpa have played together for a very long time at this point. I mean, totally. I mean, as a solo laner, how nice is it to know that your jungler knows what you're going to do in certain matchups and understand how to punish that?
It's so huge, because if there's any sort of strategy that you want to deploy against the enemy, like if there's going to be mages coming up in this lane, which there very well could be, and you're playing an aggressive warrior, guardian, whatever the case is, you're going to be looking for those aggressive invade strategies. So the fact that Jump and Delny have been playing for so long together, I think is going to help Delny maybe break that meta.
And I think the place where it's the most helpful is that Jumpa really knows he can trust Delny, right? Delny's not going to lose his lane, because as much as we see Jumpa go over and gank, there are games where we see Jumpa just ignore the solo lane entirely, and he'll be way over in the dual lane harassing them. This trust that they have, it doesn't just facilitate itself in ganks that they do together, but that Jumpa can leave Delny alone because he knows he'll be fine all game.
Fair enough. That's something to watch out for the Flashpoint side. Let's move on to our final team here at the Summer Split, the final LAN, and that's Astral Authority. This team looks very, very similar to the Astral Authority squad that came to LAN during the spring. Only one change, and let's start there. Cyprexa in that dual lane alongside Inbound, and last LAN, everyone's criticism of Astral was, yeah, Baronic's super good, Layers will make plays, Wolves is Wolves, Inbound's a world champion, but the dual lane just really isn't there. Everyone had question marks about Covey in particular in that ADC role. After that LAN, an immediate roster change there. This was kind of the lane where a lot of opposition, including Rival, really took advantage of Astral Authority. Is Cyprexa the guy to stop that from happening?
Absolutely, I think so. Cyprexa and Inbound already look like they've got great synergy going on between the two of them. Like you said, they're a relatively newish duo lane together. They've had some reps, obviously, here in the Summer Split, but they don't look like they've lost a beat at all. And part of that is that you can count on Inbound for you, but also that Cyprexa is just where he needs to be. He's been landing his shots, maybe not a star hunter just yet, like your Vapor's Coasts or anything like that, but he certainly is going to be doing everything you need from your hunter.
As a newer player trying to transition into a team, I think that Cyprexa definitely has fulfilled his role because of how much talent has been surrounding him. And as long as he's not overstretching, trying to tower dive, just waiting for that right power spike of his hunter build, then that's what's going to allow Astral Authority to start cohesively grouping up and going for these objectives. And thus far, Cyprexa has impressed me.
Cyprexa might not be a name that you're particularly familiar with at home. Maybe you'll know him by his former gamer tag, Griffin Slays, was in the SCL for a time during the last season, so certainly not a newer player to the competitive scene, but he will be new at LAN. But like we were talking about with Flashpoint and Panda Mid, I mean, there's so much LAN experience on this team as well that I don't think that's really going to be a problem for them.
think that this is such an elite team that even though there was a lot of LAN, or not LAN, but previous console experience for Griffin, that this is a different playing ground. This is him at LAN. This is him surrounded by a world champion and to his support, Bobby, and just having Wolves right beside you from the solo lane. That's your opposite side laner. When like you're in a team and you have like one superstar in that side lane, you need to be able to really rely on that kind of experience at a LAN setting.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see that from this team at all. No, not at all. When is Inbound just going to change his in-game name to Bobby, by the way, so I can stop saying Inbound?
I mean,
is it
Inbound
taken?
is like...
Is that what it is? Does someone have it?
Almost certainly, yes, first of all. And it's very particular. It's Bob capital E.
Right.
Like, that is how you spell Bobby if you're talking about Inbound. And Inbound has been such a critical part of this team forever. He always seems to be a critical part of whatever team he's playing on. In the PC player that I most often compare Inbound to is Raffer, because so often, I mean, his KDA is not going to jump off the page at you 1.6. He'll have those 10 death games, and sometimes he's feeding and playing poorly, and Bobby knows that. But at the same time, he has those games where you just are, what is this guy doing? And then a Thor dunk and a Jing Wei all of a sudden the whole team is there, and it all seemed intentional all at once. It's a different play style, but one that can be very effective.
If you ever just listen to him during streams, whether or not he's streaming or he's on someone else's stream, you've got to be scratching your head at times because he's silly and goofy. But when it comes to the serious competitive games, he's like a savant, honestly. Like everything just turns on for him, and then everything that he shows on stream goes out the window.
Well, I'm the tier 1 main here, and whenever I'm casting this team, the fights always start off with, well, Inbound's certainly dead here, and that's how it feels at least whenever you're casting him. He makes it out, or even if he does die, it's a 1 for 4, and the rest of his team is taking Phoenixes afterwards or whatever. It really does feel like he's such a facilitator, and I think that's what allowed Cyprexa to look so comfortable, right? He's so good in comms, he's so good in knowing where the team should be, and he does keep the team sort of relaxed, doesn't he? He is very silly, so you'll never get too serious or too stressed out, I don't think, playing with this guy. He's very confident as well, and I know that he expects his Astral team to get a little bit of revenge here up against Rival.
And speaking of, overall experience and different qualities to have in a player, I always think back to something that Ataraxias talks about a lot of time during his long pro career on the European PC SPL, is that having a player who's willing to die is something that is not easy to find and also very important in a MOBA. And Inbound certainly fits that bill, whether he wants to or not sometimes. In the mid lane, though, Boronic, we've talked so much about the other mid laners, particularly about Fly. Boronic, it still has the potential, I think, to be considered the best mid laner on console, but he's kind of lost some of that consistency for me.
I think his mechanics are still like elite status. Now, whether or not he's hitting every single Thoth ultimate, every single through space and time is to be left desired, but switching to more gods like Discordia, utility-based, passive being applied globally to whoever is the most aggressive can help Wolves out potentially is something that he's thinking about in the back of his mind. How can he follow up off of his aggressive jungler?
And I think that that's kind of where it is. In the picks and bans, I want to see them make sure that they get a god that Boronic is not just comfortable on, but top tier on all the time. And I'm not necessarily that Boronic can't play other stuff. I'm saying I want to see him on Giannis's and Thoth as often as possible so he can really run these fights. I mean, it's so often Boronic is such a big part of what this Astral squad does well. We talked about him in the conversation with Fly for the best mid laner right now on console, and he's earned it. He used to be the best mid laner until Fly started really looking so consistent. So I think prioritizing his picks, playing through him, certainly is the way to go.
I totally agree with you. For my money, was the best mid laner on console, and still certainly in that conversation. It's just that you can almost feel, at least I can, mid is a very rhythm role. I mean, because everything is long range, you got to be hitting every ability basically. And it feels like Boronic is a particularly rhythm player. Not everyone is, but if Boronic misses the first 2 to 3 ultimates, I'm like, we could be in for a long one here with Astral Authority. And I wonder if that kind of mindset could weigh more heavily on him at LAN. But on the same side of that coin, or the other side, I should say, if he hits the first 3 ultimates, I'm like, oh, this game's over. Like, Boronic's hot, and there's no chance anyone has to come back once that happens.
No, it's so scary when Boronic is feeling it, right? I think that's exactly the way to say it. When he's on, he's definitely on. And even when he's off, I would still take him. Absolutely, right? Like, I don't want to make it sound like if Boronic misses a few shots, I don't want him. That dude's still nuts. He can go off at any point. So I think that you hit the nail on the head there. Even if Boronic misses a few shots, I still want him in my mid lane.
Fair enough. Layers in the jungle, another kind of rhythm player, momentum-based player, if you will, and one who has been around for a long time. Whatever there is to say about Layers, it's kind of already been said because he's aggressive. He wants to play up in your face all the time, has those games where can lose his rhythm early on and have tough games after that. But much like Boronic, when he's on, he's really, really on and feels nearly impossible to stop.
And that's what makes Astral as a whole really unpredictable, just to see how their early game is. So probably going to see some early game picks more than likely for both Boronic and Layers, and I think that Astral needs to rely more on just Layers to set up the plays. I think they need to look at the side lane specifically. If Cyprexa is going to pop off, if also that Wolves is going to make any plays happen, it needs to be off of the global pressure that Layers provides. He likes Thor a lot, but I think in this current meta, Thor hasn't been too popular, and that's not really Layers' glove-fitting style.
He does kind of like these somewhat controlling-y junglers, though. I feel like we'll see him play Thor. Susanos will come out a lot from him, too. So, I mean, and not only does he play very well no matter what jungler he's playing on, but I don't think he has a problem playing them gods that can kind of help facilitate a little bit more and do the damage for him with some of these picks, too. So, I'm expecting big things from Layers. The jungle pool, I feel like, isn't quite as competitive maybe as the solo pool is right now. So, I think he's got an opportunity to be perhaps the best jungler here if he's playing on point.
Yeah, certainly a possibility for Layers. Also prone to getting frustrated at times, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some early invades against him, try and get him off his game a little bit. And if he's going to defend against that, he's going to need to really rely on Wolves out of that solo lane. Wolves, a guy who has just been in the conversation for best console player for literally years now and has always been right at the top of that. I still feel like if everyone's playing their best, Wolves is still playing better than you. When he gets a pick that he can really dominate with, I mean, this guy's Odin ban rate against him is just absurd throughout his career.
As it should be.
It's just, I don't get it. Like, characters look like they get different stats when Wolves plays them, particularly Odin.
No, he just looks so good, doesn't he? And he's so consistent. We talk about that word all the time, but he's the one that does it. It feels like his floor is high and his ceiling is even higher for some reason. Like, you'll never get a bad performance, and sometimes he just wins you the game outright. And I've been kind of drinking the Kool-Aid from this solo pool this whole time, and Wolves is kind of why. He's up at the top of that. and he just consistently looks so good. Astral plays so well through him. He rotates over, and you're like, why is he level 13 already? I don't understand. And he's ruining your day, possibly your night. I mean, this guy's excellent.
I mean, whether it's a warrior such as Odin, Guan Yu, a guardian such as Kuzenbo, Sobek, or even an assassin like Loki that he heavily prefers from time to time, he's unpredictable with where he's going to go in his pick. And Odin, a popular ban against Wolves, but it's also going to be a very popular ban in just this meta. So I think Wolves going to need to start relying on a different pick in the Summerland.
Certainly has plenty in the God pool, as you mentioned. I am interested to see if he's going to pull out the Loki. If you have Wolves on your team, you have to have practiced with it at some point, because he's just a god that can make you lose a game very quickly, and Wolves is a guy who can make you lose a game very quickly. Even thinking back to when I was playing against this guy, we'd be doing VOD review and be like, all right, what happened in this fight? And me or whoever I was playing with in the Hunter role at the time would just be like, oh, we got Wolvesed. Like, nothing we could have done. I don't know. Wolves just played better than us, and we feel really bad about it. That still happens today. So we'll see if that happens against the rest of the teams here at the Summerland. That is all 4 of them. And with the introductions kind of done there for these squads, we may as well go over who we think will be in the top. Now, remember, this is a double elimination bracket, much like that spring split. And because it's double elim, it's kind of tough for us to do the graphic and put everything in there, and feels kind of confusing. So instead, we'll go with our top 2. That seems a little bit easier for me. And I'll start with mine. I think that this could very easily, first of all, let's get this off the table. Rivals top 2. Free. Okay,
yes.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Rival is one of the top 2 teams. I think that it really is, if Astral is hot, they will not only get to top 2, but win the entire LAN.
Yes.
If they aren't, Flashpoint makes top 2. My top 2 right now, I've got Rival and Astral. I think Astral Authority will get hot during this LAN. And this is kind of my last in. Like, I'm pushing the last of my chips in on Astral Authority because I've been high on them all season 5. If they don't have a good performance here, I think I'm moving on and saying that I don't think this is the best team in the region anymore. But we're going to see if it happens. I've got Astral and Rival, and I think Astral's going to win it.
Yeah, well, as you said, I very much agree with you on Rival. I think there will be very little debate about whether or not Rival's going to make it over the top. So it's the North American team that we're kind of disagreeing on. I think it's going to be Flashpoint, personally. I think that they are going to travel through the lower end. I think they're going to lose that first set because I believe they play up against Rival right at the beginning.
Yes.
Which is a very tough matchup. No one wants to play against them, and they'll make their way through probably up against Astral to get back to the finals. And it's sort of just like what you were saying, right? I expect the consistency to be more on the side of Flashpoint. Astral had to go through some change-ups in summer. They didn't get to play all together as a unit, the whole split, whereas on the other side, Flashpoint has. Plus, you talk about Delny and Jumpy, how long they've been together forever. I mean, I just feel like the synergy might be a little bit more there for them. I know how hungry these guys are and how much they want to win, especially against Astral. And I just feel confident Flashpoint will pull it out.
So I'm more on the same boat as you, Agar, in terms of getting the top 2 picks of Astral and Rival, but I got to disagree with you with who's going to win. I think Rival are still riding that LAN high that they won, and it clearly shows in the online, going undefeated.
Yes.
Very difficult to go against the numbers at times, and they even went through Astral Authority in the finals. They got knocked down by them in the first round. Being able to bounce back that way is just a true test of your being able to handle adversity in the LAN is the hardest thing to do when you're down like that, and Rival proven it, and I think that they're not going to stop here, even with quote-unquote the weakest Link Covey being replaced by Cyprexa. I still don't think that that's going to be enough to topple over Rival.
Certainly could be the case. Just when I was talking about Astral Authority, when I was thinking about these picks, like I said, I mean, it's so much about consistency, and if they're consistent enough to make the finals, that means they're probably hot enough in my mind to win the finals, but certainly could see Rival or Flashpoint or even Revenge making some noise in this LAN. Even though they aren't here, well, at least on the desk, we also got the rest of our casters' predictions, so you can make fun of them if they're wrong.
I will.
Hindu Man, he went with Rival and Flashpoint, also feeling that new Flashpoint roster and how they're working together very well. F. He's in New York. Did you know he's from there, by the way?
He's literally never mentioned it one time, so I didn't know.
Would you believe that?
I had no idea.
Yeah, me neither. I definitely thought he was
There's so many other interesting things about him. It gets lost in the shuffle. You know?
I don't know. I just see Tom and I'm like, New Jersey. You know what I mean? New Jersey right away. Are you okay there, Finch?
Yep.
Cool. Rival and Astral Authority are Tom's 2 picks. And then Taco, as she's working on her wisdom teeth right now. Hopefully everything goes well with her. Rival and Flashpoint, her 2 picks, agreeing with Hindu Man. Speaking of Hindu Man, since F. is in his hometown of New York, which is apparently his hometown, we got Hindu Man doing our top plays and top fails of the entire split for the console side.
Yeah, it's all about console today. I'll try and do my best F. impressions for you all. What's goody? I'm F. Let's do some plays third play on the list. We're going to start at number 3. It's going to be Mollusk in the jungle, who's not currently playing console anymore, but still did well enough to get himself into the top plays. Probably from Long Island or New Jersey or Brooklyn. Just keep naming places that, Tom may like. That's pretty much what we do. Oh, is that number 1? That's number 1 play. So I just got told my predictions wrong. So Fatal Ghost is number 1 play? Let's go to the play. I can work it out from the play to work out exactly what it's going to be here. Okay, so it is Fatal Ghost in this one. And he's playing the Medusa in the duo lane, 2v1 situation. Now, this wasn't just a solo kill. This was just a good fight on some aggression onto his Athena, taking down Zaxi as well. And the Athena taunt followed up, nice enough, but it just shows the combination of the Medusa in the duo lane with an Athena, even when the Petrify doesn't connect. Onto the triple. You saw it a little bit earlier on in the show when they were talking a little bit about Panda mid for Flashpoint. Picks up a kill here, and then he misses the ultimate, but this ultimate, it doesn't really miss. It just opens the pathway, or doorway in this instance, to allow him to keep swinging down the line alongside the poor old Fafnir. To pick himself a nice, easy triple kill. Nice way of playing Giannis, even if you can't find the damage. Still, use those portals to your advantage. And last but not least, it was first at one point. He's the number 1 play. It's Mollusk, and he's having a pretty good time with things too on the Odin. This is a classic Odin jungle. Your level 8 team, the dual lane 16, 2v1, jobs are good 'un. Stand and bang. And that's exactly what he did to get the number 1 play. So Mollusk finds himself on top. However, not just on top, Mollusk has the opportunity to find himself in the top fail too, for the worst possible reasons. He had a game as Susano, and well, we'll watch it from Leia's point of view, because you see the Susano appear, you see him eat a stun, then you see him go, wait, what went wrong? Oh, hang on, I'm supposed to kill him. I'll go under the tower. He's only 2 hits from... Oh, no, I'm dead! Well then, I guess that's why Mollusk retired after getting number 1 play and the top fail. That's it for console top 5 plays, or top 3 plays, I should say. Let's head over, though, to an interview. We got a little chance earlier on this week to have Inbound sit down with Finch and break down a little bit about what's coming up for himself at the next lap.
All right, Finch here. I am talking with Bobby from, or Inbound rather, from Astral. They're going to be going into this console LAN here coming up very shortly. And I know he's excited. We were just talking a little bit here before we started recording everything. But the first thing I want to ask you, I mean, this LAN's going to be a little bit different. We got some format changes to it with that lower bracket that you can drop down into. I know y'all aren't planning on losing or anything like that, but how do those format changes, I mean, does that affect y'all's mentality at all coming in?
No, we're just going to stay in the winner's bracket the entire time. It'll help the other teams, though. So
that's right. You might have to play somebody that you already beat or something like that. But other than that, it's not going to change much for y'all, I guess. All right, well, absolutely. Well, then I guess that I already know here how your thoughts are going into this, but with how well Rival looked in spring, how improved they looked over the summer split as well, continuing their dominance, are you all worried about going up against that squad at all?
No, I hope to face them, because we'll beat them this time. There's no doubt in my mind. We've gotten a lot better. We've improved on stuff that we struggled with. The meta shifted a little bit to help us out, and yeah, we're just back on our feet, and we're ready to play them.
And without giving away too much, what do you think it was that they improved on so much that helped them out here in spring? Because, I mean, they did look okay towards the end of Season 4, but nothing like how they look now.
I think the Rapio change was like their biggest change, adding him instead of Osric. I think he helps their team out a lot. He like dictates the pace a lot better, and he plays team fights a lot better than Osric did. I think Osric is a way better early game jungle. He definitely like forces it really well, but I think Rapio helps that team out a lot more.
All right, well, that's going to be a little bit further down the line as Rival, but early on, you all are going to be looking at Revenge. It's going to be this first match we're just about to go into. Talk to me a little bit specifically about what you all have done for this matchup here against Revenge. Again, you had to tilt your hand here too much, but, you know, what kind of prep work have you all done for this second-place team? Because they've been improving a lot as well.
Yeah, we definitely have to give them the respect they deserve. They definitely made LAN. They beat the second CDU team from the spring LAN. So they definitely, like, deserve their shot here, and we're going to give them, like, the respect they need. Don't want to really say anything too much, but we've got a plan prepared for them. It's different than our plan for Rival, but we're ready for them.
Yeah, I absolutely expect y'all to have something prepared specifically for them. Now, obviously, your North American counterparts, that's going to be Flashpoint, some of your old teammates there as well, some players that you know very well. If you all do end up facing them, do you feel like you all have any kind of edge there, or how do you feel about that matchup?
Yeah, we play really well into FP since the changes for their team and our team. during the beginning of spring. We're expecting to play well against them also. They are a very good team. Their jungle solo, Delny and Jumpa, are fantastic players, but we match up really well with Layers and Wolves on them, so should be a good game.
I think no matter what matches we're getting, we're definitely going to see some good matches. So hopefully y'all will be able to stay up there in that top end of the bracket. Before I let you go here, Inbound, any kind of shout-outs or anything you want to give, like to your org or fans or anything like that?
Shout out to Astro. They're a great org. Really love the jerseys that they're giving us for this upcoming LAN. Shout out to my team. Shout out to my new duo, Grith. Or Cyprexa, I guess his name is now. Shout out to Cyprexa. That's about it.
All right, well, again, thanks for sitting down here with us, Inbound. Can't wait to see y'all looking good in those new jerseys. And again, good luck here in your match.
Thank you. See ya, Finch.
First of all, it's messed up that Bobby didn't give me a shout out, but I'll get over it, I suppose. Secondly, I'm joined here on the casual set for what I thought was going to be a meta discussion with everyone that we've seen so far here on Esports Weekly with Anatoly, Hindu, and Finch. But Finch, we got a match to do right now? Is that what I heard from you?
Yeah, apparently, that's what I thought back then in those days. But I'm a wiser Finch now, and nope.
So it's cool to do a meta discussion.
Yeah,
right
we're allowed to do that. As much as they want to see that match happen, it's going to be this weekend. I was getting a little ahead of myself. I'm very excited for the LAN.
All right, well, take a breath.
Bit of a mix up there.
Count to 10, Finch, all right? We'll get there eventually. Right now, though, as we kind of alluded to earlier, I think the meta discussion that I want to get into most is the rise, this flavor of the month. It's not necessarily healers, but the Chang'e and the Soul Lane, kind of this bruiser sort of mage. Aphrodite could be there as well. Do you think that this is what we're going to see? That's what we've seen on the PC side. Do you think that's what we'll see here on console during this LAN?
Yeah, I think that we'll definitely still see it. I've been had some weird thoughts about it because you do kind of lose that frontline bruisery presence, right? And I've seen it's really strong for them in the prolonged fights when they can just be ahead and they're doing enough damage where they don't need someone up there necessarily soaking up a bunch of damage. But sometimes when you're defending, you don't have enough people to go up front and absorb damage, and you're trying to counter initiate, it can't be as strong. So I definitely expect that we'll see it, but you do kind of lose something. You don't have that big warrior who's ahead.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that Chang'e's being played online for so long that it's still going to be played at LAN. I think that there's going to be counters to it, though, however, that we're starting to see now. A lot of wall counters. You got your Odin, your Thor, your Kabrakan, Ymir, whatever wall you want to throw at them. And then just being able to anti-heal as well, like Cerberus and Alpoash to counter the Aphrodites of the world. Now, Jean-Quis have started to show up in the meta as a result of some of his changes in 5.9. Specifically, out of all the small little minute changes, the biggest one to me is just to witness any death to get the stack in your soul bag. So that way no one steals your souls, because it felt like when you played Jean-Quis, it felt like you were at a cafeteria lunch line and somebody cuts in front of you and they got the last cheeseburger, right? But there's still other food, obviously, but you wanted that cheeseburger, and that's what it felt like. So now you're always going to get the cheeseburger.
Totally, sounds like you were a cheeseburger thief. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I was the
victim.
I was the victim.
You're
of
the hamburger?
No.
The Hamburglar in the flesh?
It's right here.
Oh, man, this is a good nickname for Toly. The Hamburglar? Oh, this is going to be good.
Not like
You set yourself up. Nobody else does.
Not like this.
On Finch's point, though, about the seeing Chang'e back and you lose a little bit in the front line, he's right, but you trade things in the front line.
Right.
What you're seeing with Chang'e and Jean-Quis now, they're building slightly tanky. They've got sustain in the kit anyway. They've got survivability. Specifically, the protections from Zhong alongside Chang'e with the ridiculous immunity that she has to get in and out of combat. You provide less CC to your team, but you are still playing as a warrior. To an extent, you can still frontline, you can still be aggressive. The problem is will CC be required at the LAN? And that's where I think you're at, where you're losing some of the warrior. You trade CC for damage and survivability is the big difference between the two.
They're so reliant on that waxing moon, right? When you're playing the Chang'e, it's like if that ultimate is a big ultimate in a team fight, you almost certainly are going to win it. But if it's a little off, you only hit one person, then it's not the same.
To be fair, hitting one person with it is good. Like
it can be, depending on who it is.
The reason is because when you see an ultimate like that, it's like, hang on a second, the last person will be stunned for 6 seconds.
I think it says forever.
Yeah, it pretty much
until you
6
die.
seconds. Like if that's going to happen to you, it's going to be great. So you're always looking for the dream ultimate. It's the same when he plays Zeus and he can't hit more than one person. Like
not using it if I can't hit all 5.
That's the key. You're looking for the Kraken that's going to get the kill or hit 2 or 3 people. Sometimes I'd like to see more people maybe use the waxing moon just to kill the target in the first place, and CDR as well. Yeah. But yeah, that's the only CC she's got.
But that's the only CC she really needs.
Exactly, yeah, you're right.
Now, if you want to build into Gem of Isolation, then you could do that and be so obnoxious. You're tanky enough as it is, so you can allow yourself to go into the front line And by having that Gem of Isolation, you're consistently slowing them down. With a 5-second first ability cooldown, you're consistently slowing them down and applying the anti-healing, which is so important in this meta of Jonquils, the Aphrodites, even some health from time to time.
But is it really worth, like, are these characters so good that we were talking about Predators a lot on the desk, and he loves the Hercules and the Cucullin and these super aggressive sort of selections, and that's really core to Rival's identity. If you're on Rival, you're really like, yo, Chang'e's pretty good now. We have to change the entire way we play the early game. Is she that good, or can you still make it work with the Hercules and the Cucullins?
I'm personally not a fan of switching up my own identity if another team is working it out with Chang'e. I'm looking at ways to counter that more than adapting to it. And if it doesn't work to the point that we can't counter it, then sure, eventually jump into that play. But Rival have been so successful with the Hercules solo lane, being able to invade blue buffs off of the rotations even from Rapio, to be able to ignore the Chang'es and Jonquils of the world.
I just think it's a playstyle now. Like, it's a viable playstyle to play the Zhongs, to play the Chang'es in the solo lane if you want to. Teams can... Basically, you're going to see them get to late game. If the game goes past 20 minutes, they're going to get the farm anyway, even if you focus them the whole game.
Yeah.
You can get too far ahead, though, where the healer's not going to make that much of a difference from the solo lane. The survivability of them isn't going to be big enough to keep the whole team sustained and stay alive. I think it's just a play style choice now that you can go for if you want to by picking these, but it's not be all and end all.
Yeah, it's not like if you don't take these, you automatically lost.
But I mean, if I'm Wolves, I mean, isn't this kind of like exactly what you want if you're Wolves in the solo lane, right? Everyone playing these mages, he's already a lane bully when you're Cucullin or Achilles or whatever. So now he gets to beat up on a Chang'e or an Aphrodite. So I feel like maybe I might change a little bit if I'm going into Wolves, but other than that, I mean, you're feeling pretty good about it.
You guys
right?
were talking on the desk about Loki, and I'm like, he can't play Loki this matter. I don't think Loki's the real pick.
Say that.
I mean,
yeah, and then he plays it.
Against Chang'e, Aphrodite, or Zhong in that solo lane, have fun trying to play Loki. Like, none of those are really going to get out pressured by Loki in that first 5 to 8 levels when he wants to get his either stacks online or just get his core build online. He's going to get brutalized in that lane.
Well,
lose every buff, lose everything.
It's always going to be situational. I'm not picking a Loki into a Chang'e Aphrodite. Like, I'm going to make sure my team is second pick, and I'm saving my last pick for Wolves if that's the case.
Yeah. Certainly could be a possibility for Wolves. Basically, everything under the sun is a possibility for Wolves.
He's really good.
In that solo lane. This summer LAN happening this weekend, again, for the console side. We got a lot of cool things happening for it. Very excited for it to come through. And as we usually do here on Esports Weekly, even though this is a special episode, we always have Joe Bro throw us together a nice little meme video. You guys like memes? Here's some memes.
Memes?
I said I was 8% off, but I did not go above. So if we're playing like Price is Right
rules,
then you know your boy's coming out on top.
Okay.
Picture me on a jet ski like Jay-Z.
Araxia drops in, but it's just the wrong spot. He gets immediately Batista bombed and removed from the game. Pretty Prime is going to be the next target. He does have the first going, man. Too bad Aggro's off this week, huh? He'd be loving
he
this.
will love this set, man. What a missed opportunity. Sucks to be that guy, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, just in general, it does, but especially now, you're right, yeah.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces.
Having Athena and Agni is like building a computer and you got the core components that you really need, like your top two.
Yep.
The rest is just kind of all situational fill.
I
Like,
can see that. I can see that. SK is like a floppy drive on the computer then. Who would you say? Obey. Mouse are like the DVD player, you know, the DVD
Oh my
rewriter
goodness.
on it as well. That makes sense.
are we
yeah.
going for some recycled electronic equipment here? Who's the VCR? I used to tape so many shows when I was a teenager. So many.
You wouldn't download a car, Tony.
Somehow, Joe Bro continues to make them better and better. The best meme video yet, by my estimation. Also, how did Hindu miss that if you're building a computer, Mouse Sports is the mouse? It's so free! Come on, Hindu. Anyways, 1 second. All right, I'm back at it mentally. Here we go. Look, this has been a really awesome show. Thank you so much for watching our Esports Weekly here, previewing the console LAN. But next week, we've got the PC players coming through and a huge PC LAN Global Series teams there as well. So we're going to have a very special episode for that as well. Make sure you tune in for that. Probably a little bit of a longer episode there, and I'm very excited to get into it. But first, we got to get through this awesome console LAN coming up this weekend. Also want to make a note, if you want to participate in some community tournaments or maybe even run some community tournaments, make sure you go to esports.smitegame.com. There's plenty of information there. New blog posts go up on Sundays. Maybe you'll be inspired after watching those PS4 qualifiers or this console LAN on Xbox. There's console tournaments, there's PC tournaments. Again, esports.smitegame.com. You could participate in a tournament or organize your own, get some gem prizing for you and your players. A bunch of fun stuff there. Make sure you check it out. Even though there's a special episode, we still got the meme video, and of course, we still have your moment of Toli. We'll see you this weekend.
On top of this, we were talking about going for different relic selections. When you have an Athena, try to go for the horrific emblem.
Yeah.
It's like Amateur Deresu wasn't satisfied enough with having a car. He wanted a jet plane. Because now he has two ways.
Are you telling me you don't want a jet plane? Is that really what you're selling to me right now, Toli?
No.
Give me a
Not
jet
really.
plane any day of the week. You really don't
So
want
I used to have a fortune cookie on my wall for about 4 years that said, the loss of what we enjoy is lost by wanting more. If you have a car, why do you need a jet plane?
First of all, that's the most Anatoly thing you've said all day. Secondly, I still don't understand it. Third, I still want a jet plane.
It's like you get something that's really cool, but after like a couple of days, weeks, months, years, whatever, you get bored of it. You're like, man, but there's this other cool thing that's a little bit better. Let me try to get that. And then you forget about the cool thing that you originally had.